Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Sufi bin Ruslan, and today I'll be doing a presentation on my final year project proposal. So the title for my final year project is 2D platformer game about recycling. So this is the contents that I'll be covering in this presentation. There are 4 points. So first of all is student information, where I'll be covering the student credentials, and then chapter 1, where there will be background, problem statement, objective, scope, and significance. And then as for chapter 3, I'll be covering the domain, research area, techniques, existing apps, and justifications. And last but not least, chapter 3, I'll be covering the methodology, system architecture, and the summary of methodology. So without further ado, let's get to the first content, which is student information. Alright, so my name is Muhammad Sufi bin Ruslan, and the project title for my project is 2D platformer game about recycling. And my supervisor for this project is Dr. Khairul binti Ahmad Saleh. So now the chapter 1, which is the introduction of the project. So as for the background, pollution has become a norm nowadays. Thus, an initiative to create awareness about recycling is needed. So this can be done by incorporating recycling elements in the video game. So basically, this project acts as an initiative in order to create awareness about recycling, in order to reduce pollution that is happening in our world right now. So next is the problem statement. So with the increasing number of population, economic growth will also increase, which will result in increment in waste materials. Excess waste will lead to pollutions, which will bring hazardous effects to humans and even death. This is basically in terms of diseases like cancer, skin cancer, due to pollutions and exposure to hazardous waste and pollutions. So recycling must be implemented. However, the public still have lack of awareness towards it. Thus, as the popular source of entertainment, video game is used to create awareness about recycling to the public. So now in the 21st century, video games had already become mainstream in the world and in pop culture. So using video game as the medium to create awareness about recycling is the best method in order to create awareness in the public's mind. Next is the objectives. There are 3 of them. So the first one is to design the game mechanics that consist of recycling elements. Next is to develop a 2D platformer game using Unity. And last but not least is to test the functionality of the developed 2D platformer game. The scope for this project, there are 5 of them. So the first one is the target audiences, which are targeted to users of all ages. And then the development tool used in this project is the Unity game engine. And then the aspect covered in this project is recycling of plastics, paper, and glasses. Next one is the programming language, which in this project will be utilizing C# through Visual Studio to connect with the Unity game engine for the scripting part of the game. And last but not least is the interface language, which will be utilizing English, since it is the mainstream language and almost all people of all ages know how to converse in English. Next is the significance. The first one is to create awareness about recycling. Next is to help improve knowledge about recycled items. Next is to encourage the public to start recycling, and last but not least is to provide information about recycling items through entertainment. So now let's get into chapter 2, which is the literature review. So as for the domain, a course of action to help save the environment exists, which is recycling. So it is the most approachable way for the public to implement. in order to help save the environment. Recycling of paper, glass, and plastic will benefit humans in making the world a safer place to live in. So there are tons of ways to help the environment, to save the environment, to make it greener and safer. But recycling is the most approachable way since it is easy and it is basically based on the behavior of the user itself. Next is the research area. So serious game is a part of the big three of video games. While general games are made for fun, serious games are developed to pursue beneficial agendas to the audiences while letting them enjoying the perks of playing a typical video game. It is a good approach, especially today since video games have become mainstream and popular in the whole world. Next is the technique. So as you could see on the illustration, there are several types of games in video games as a whole. That is gamification, serious game, game-inspired playful design, and games. As you can see, gamification is more towards the purpose and there's no real gameplay. While for this project, serious game is implemented because the objective of this project is to pursue beneficial agenda, which is recycling, and while incorporating gaming elements in the project itself, which is why it is a serious game, since there will be gameplay elements of a game in the project. So for the existing apps, first of all is Super Mario Bros. The game mechanics used in Super Mario Bros. Is avatar, collectible items, obstacles, platforms, triggers, and movement aids. Next is the controller support. It has Nintendo controllers, arcade controllers. And the development tools used for Super Mario Bros. Is assembly. The main focus for Super Mario Bros. Is purely for entertainment. The platforms for this game is Nintendo machines and arcade machines. And last but not least, the developer for Super Mario Bros. Is Nintendo Corporation Limited. Next is E-Command. The game mechanics in E-Command is avatar, collectible items, and platforms. The controller support for this game is keyboard only. The development tools used for E-Command is Unity. The main focus for this game is to create awareness about recycling. The platforms for this game is PC, and the developer for this game is Happy Doggo Studio. Next is Hollow Knight, one of the most popular indie games out there. The game mechanics for this game is avatar, collectible items, platforms, movement aids, obstacles, and triggers. The controller support is console controllers as well as keyboard. The development tools used in this game is Unity. The main focus for this game is purely for entertainment. The platforms for this game is PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. And last but not least, the developer for this game is Team Cherry. So for my proposed project, the mechanics that I'll be implementing in my game will be avatar, collectible item, platforms, and obstacles. The controller support for my game will be only for keyboard. The development tools used, I'll be using Unity game engine. The main focus for my game is to create awareness about recycling. The platforms for my game is PC, and the developer for the game is myself, Mohammed Sufi bin Ruslan. Alright, so for the justification of the project, video games is used for this project since it is the most engageable medium for the people of all ages. Since this game is going to pursue beneficial agenda as the outcome, serious games is being implemented to ensure engagement while incorporating beneficial purpose. Game mechanics applied in this project is to ensure the ability for the audience to enjoy the game, which are, first one is avatar, which is basically the in-game character, and then the collectible items, which is in the form of collectible waste materials, platforms, which is objects that allow the avatar to walk on, and last but not least, obstacles, which is objects that lay out damage to the avatar. So now let's get into the chapter 3, which covers the methodology of the project. So as you can see, this is the methodology diagram. So first of all, there are 6 phases in this methodology. First one is initiation, pre-production, production, testing, beta, and release. So in initiation, it is basically the rough concept of the game, planning. Then pre-production, where it is the initial phase of production before the production cycle starts. And then production phase, which is where the development of the game begins. And then the next phase is testing, where the game will be tested by the developers to ensure there will be no bugs and to fix them if there are any bugs. The next phase is beta, which is basically testing, but it is open for the audiences. There are two types of beta, which is open beta and closed beta. So for the closed beta, an invitation will be sent to the audiences, to the selected audiences, to try the game and give feedbacks. And the open beta is for literally anybody. And last but not least, the sixth phase and the last one, which is release, which is basically the game is completely done and published to the public. Next is the system architecture of the project. So first of all, as the user will need I/O devices, which is keyboard for controls, and audio output devices in order to hear the audio of the game. And then moving on, the user will found with the interface of the game. Next, the user will get into the game system, which consists of the game assets, where the player model, the recycling sprites and game level sprites will be shown, as well as the game mechanics will be implemented in the game system. So the game system is basically the core game itself. And then the game system will connect with the game database, which holds all the assets of the game, which will be used under Unity. And the IDE software used for this project is the Microsoft Visual Studio as the scripting software for scripting purposes of the game. So the game will show the output through a display output devices for the user to see. Next is the summary of the methodology. So as you can see, there are 5 phases in this table, which covers 3 objectives. So first of all is initiation. It doesn't cover any objectives, but the activities done in initiation is acknowledging the background of study, problem statement, objective, scope, and significance, acknowledge the correlated literature review, and identifying the applied method for the project. And then the deliverables is project proposal, literature review, game development lifecycle, which is GDLC. Next is the second objective. It covers the pre-production. The first objective, it covers the second phase, which is pre-production, which is depict the flowchart of the game, outline the narrative of the game, which will result in getting the flowchart as well as the storyboard. Next, the second objective covers production, which is installation of the software required in the game development, development of the source code for the game engine, which the output is getting the software called Unity, Visual Studio, and Photoshop for creation of the game assets, and as well as the scripting and source code of the game, which is coded. And last but not least, the last objective covers 2 phases, which is testing and beta, where the activities is test the usability of the game, as well as detecting bugs and debugging, perceiving the game's flaws, as well as collecting feedbacks from the participants, which will result in the 2D game platformer about recycling, which is the final project output. Alright, so that is basically the presentation for my final year project. My name is Muhammad Sufi bin Ruslan. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.